Without much introduction, here's part 2 of my Dark Lost Media series. Daniel P. Dukes was the second person to be killed by Tilikum, the largest orca held in captivity. On July 6, 1999, he somehow bypassed security and snuck into SeaWorld Orlando. It's uncertain what his exact time of death was, but he decided to go skinny dipping in Tilikum's sleep tank. Tilikum then reportedly trashed Dukes around in the tank and eventually killed him. The whale continued to play around with Dukes' body until the following morning, when Tilikum was found parading Dukes' body on his back. The whale had reportedly bitten off Dukes' genitals, caused so many injuries that autopsy reporters were dumbfounded as to what the actual cause of death was, and left his face in such a bad condition that his funeral had to be held closed casket. It's possible that Dukes' death may have been captured on CCTV. However, SeaWorld declined to confirm this. There are confirmed pictures of his body being carried around by the whale, taken by park employees for reference. However, the photographs and the surveillance footage, if it exists, have yet to surface, as these are more than likely being held by the FBI, never to be released. This was not the first nor the last time Tilikum killed someone. On February 20th, 1991, he killed a trainer named Kelty Byrne at the now closed Sealand of the Pacific in Victoria, British Columbia. His third victim is the subject of the next entry. Dawn Brancho was a SeaWorld trainer who worked with various whales at SeaWorld Orlando. In 2010, she was tragically killed by Tilikum, who, as previously mentioned, was the largest killer whale held in captivity. The incident was especially notable not just because of how Brancho died, but because several parts of her body were held by Tilikum, as he refused to let them go. Brancho, a well-known perfectionist, taped almost all of her shows so she could watch them and improve her performance. This means that her death was caught on tape. Part of it can be seen in the Netflix documentary Blackfish, but did not show anything after Tilikum grabbing her arm and getting ready to drag her. This was most likely out of respect for her family, and/or because SeaWorld forbade the footage to be shown publicly. SeaWorld fought long and hard to make the incident look like an accident instead of an attack. They even went as far as to say it was because of her ponytail that she was dragged under. Eyewitness reports, as well as the available footage, proved that Tilikum attacked Brancho because she had run out of food to reward him for his tricks, and also because he failed to perform one of the tricks to the fullest. Many organizations have fought hard to try to make it illegal to keep killer whales in captivity. Because of this incident, it's now required by United States law that SeaWorld's trainers only interact with orca behind a barrier. On July 26, 1938, 26-year-old John William Ward, a former bank clerk, committed suicide by leaping to his death from the 17th floor of New York's Gotham Hotel. Beforehand, he spent 11 hours atop a ledge at the hotel, with relatives and emergency workers attempting to convince him to come back inside. Ward worked as a bank clerk in Southampton. However, in July 1937, he attempted suicide with a knife. After being sent to Central Islip Psychiatric Center for 4 months, he was diagnosed as being bipolar. He would then work for the Valentines, a couple who had connections with the Wards, and employed John as a chauffeur and handyman at their Long Island travel agency in an attempt to rebuild his life, confidence, and happiness. Ultimately, despite the Valentines' best efforts, Ward remained severely depressed. 8 days before his suicide, Ward was spotted gazing down a bridge at Hampton Bays, only to run off after a bridge tender noticed him. The tender contacted the police and gave Ward's car number, However, the police could do little aside from talking to Ward and his relatives. The Valentines and Ward's sister Catherine attempted to raise his mental well-being, but their efforts did little to tackle the root causes of his depression. On the day of the suicide, John and Catherine were situated in their suite at Gotham Hotel, room 1714. Catherine told John that he needed a doctor's appointment. This considerably upset John, who immediately refused it. As Catherine and Mrs. Valentine began discussing ordering lunch, John quietly informed them, "I'm going out the window," before quickly placing himself on the window ledge. A horrified Catherine tried to talk to him, but ultimately fainted. A policeman on the ground spotted Ward and told him to get back into the hotel. Ward refused and threatened to jump if the police intervened, forcing the policeman to call in emergency backup. Despite pleading by Mrs. Valentine and Catherine, who joined John on the ledge with a rope tied around her waist, nothing could be done to tempt her brother back in. Comments from Ward signified he did not want to return to the Central Islip Psychiatric Centre, and was suspicious relatives and emergency workers would send him there if he backed out. At this point, 55th Street was shut and the press had arrived. Patrolman Charles V. Glasgow entered the hotel dressed as a civilian and engaged in a gentle conversation with Ward, also offering him water and cigarettes. Ward accepted 11 glasses of water, which were actually laced with benzodrine. This was provided by psychiatrist Jack C. Presner, who thought that the benzodrine could raise Ward's mood. Over time, Glasgow chatted with Ward about various topics like sports, picnics, and Glasgow's new job as a bellhop for Gotham Hotel, a job that he feared he would lose if Ward committed suicide. Glasgow continued to communicate with Ward even telling the patrolman the secret that he ordered the bellhop never to reveal to others. It appeared Glasgow's chat with Ward worked as the latter began to enter the hotel. However, a photographer suddenly entered 1714 and took photos, upsetting Ward and causing him to retreat back to the ledge. At 10:38 p.m, Ward finally jumped. He was quoted as saying, "There's no way out of it. I've been up here many hours trying to convince myself of a reason for living. I've made up my mind." He plummeted 17 floors, smashing through the hotel entrance's glass marquee and slamming into the sidewalk. Ward's suicide was witnessed by around 10,000 in person. Because it occurred at night, NBC was off air when the suicide itself commenced. However, it did lead to print media, including Radiocraft for its October 1938 issue, to criticize television for capturing another instance of suicide, having also captured Marion Perloff's suicide a month prior. Ward's life and suicide would be primarily the basis for the 20th century film 14 Hours, released in 1951. Various photos and newsreel footage were publicly released. It's estimated that screening the newsreels generated at least $1 million for theaters within Greater New York. Some newsreels have publicly surfaced, including one from Universal that showed Ward falling to the pavement and the aftermath. However, none of the NBC coverage is known to have survived. This is because it was provided live, with television transmissions typically not being recorded until videotape was perfected in the late 1950s. Nevertheless, a photo of the 441 line NBC coverage was taken by engineers who had viewed the live broadcast from a receiver at RCA licensed laboratories. It was then provided to Radiocraft, who displayed it in the publication's October 1938 issue. Noah's Ark is a 1928 early talkie film based on the famous Bible story. The film is best known for its flood scene, which reportedly drowned 3 actors, critically injuring another, and almost claiming the life of a young John Wayne, cast as an extra in the scene. The actors can be seen struggling to stay alive, as they were genuinely drowning. This film is responsible for putting forth stricter safety regulations on stunt scenes. When the film premiered in New York, it was 135 minutes in length. The film received harsh criticism for its poor implementation of sound and for the flood scene. For the re-release of the film, 35 minutes of footage was cut to correct the criticisms. The longer version of the flood scene apparently was more unsettling, and reportedly even contained shots of some of the actors who were drowning. The 100-minute version is the only cut of the film that survives. The 135-minute version hasn't been seen since its New York premiere, rendering those 35 minutes lost, probably forever. Meter Chaibancha was an actor from Thailand who is often regarded as an icon of the country's cinematic golden age. While he is largely unknown outside of Thailand, in his home country he was a borderline superstar, starring in nearly half of the 75 to 100 films produced yearly by the Thai film industry. He remains best known in Thailand for his numerous films with Thai actress Pachara Chawarat, with the pair first appearing in the 1961 film Love Diary of Pim Chui, before going on to make 165 films together. In 1970, production began on what would ultimately turn out to be his final film, In Si Thong, which translated to Golden Eagle. The film was notable at the time of its production for being the first film Meter himself produced and directed, as well as for featuring the return of In Si Deng, Red Eagle, a popular masked crime fighter character played by Meter, who had previously appeared in the 1959 film Chow Nakaleng, which translates to Gangster Lord. On October 8, 1970, as part of the final day of shooting, a scene was to be shot for the film's closing sequence, where Red Eagle climbs upon a rope ladder hanging beneath a helicopter before being flown off into the sunset in an action hero fashion. However, when it came time to film the scene, the helicopter flew too high above the ground for the rope ladder to be properly climbed on, with Meter only being able to reach the bottom rung of the ladder with his hands. As the helicopter began to take flight, Meter was left dangling above the ground, with nothing but the bottom rung of the rope ladder to hang on to. The pilot of the helicopter wasn't aware of this, and allowed the helicopter to continue its ascent, with Meter eventually losing his grip and falling to the ground, dying instantly. Meter's fall to the ground was caught on camera. When In Si Thong was initially released in theaters in 1970, the bizarre decision was made to include the footage in the final cut. However, in what fashion it was incorporated remains unknown. But when the film was released on DVD in 2005, the complete footage of Meter's death was removed, with the film cutting away after the helicopter begins to take flight. The footage of Meter's fall was instead replaced with further footage of the helicopter, followed by a text scroll commemorating his life. Since then, no footage of Meter falling has been made available. Those who may be in possession of the footage would presumably also be unlikely to release it in order to pay respect to Meter's memory, leaving the footage of his fall unlikely to resurface. Thank you all for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys.